Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business in life with a purpose, serving others, and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to learn how to do business in life to make an impact in the world, not just help people. Let's make an impact. How will you serve today? I want you to think about that and what impact will you create today from the serving that you're going to do? And my guest today is, oh my gosh, you guys are going to love this guy because he's the internet. He's your protector. He's your gladiator. He's the person that keeps you going because we need the internet. The internet shut off today. I think we'd all be in trouble. George, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I think it was 93, but you correct me on the date that you were part of the first internet and all that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, it was, I would say the next generation internet would probably be a good way to describe it. But yeah, the internet was, went online in 1983. And at the time, I think I was 11 years old, so I definitely wasn't involved at that point. But it turns out that I ended up actually connecting with and working with, to some degree, some of the people who developed the internet protocol in the 90s when I started my career, where I was actually a backbone design engineer for a company called NTT.
What's interesting, because now, what was that date again? 93?
1983 is when the system went live.
That's 83. Right. Okay. So it's a year late. Well, that's when you're 62, you forget 10 years. What was their mission when they said 83, we're going to start this thing called the internet? Do you remember what their thought was, what they wanted to accomplish?
I do. And the internet architecture was started really as a military research project under DARPA. And that was led by Dr. Larry Roberts. And he had two folks that were on the team that developed the protocol, Bob Kahn and Vint Cerf. And the idea was building a network that would be able to survive in what we call a digital switch rather than a circuit switched, which just in English means that the internet you see today, right? There's stuff that goes down all the time, but the internet still works.
Yeah.
Right? So, and when the idea to, or I should say the movement to adopt a more commercial version, so to speak, or to really privatize it was ideated, and those gentlemen, especially Dr. Cerf, supported that idea because they felt that the government certainly wasn't going to fund the system for people to use over the long term. And so it made sense for it to become private, which is mostly in private hands today. So from service providers, and we all know here, and that some of the large telecommunications companies that are out there are a big part of that initiative and building out those backbones.
So doing my quick math, that's 40 years ago. Yep, that's right. I'm correct. Are any of these guys around today?
Yes. In fact, actually, Dr. Cerf is one of my mentors, and I still do work for him today under the auspices of what we call the IPv6 movement and advocacy and adoption, which basically is a roomier version of the internet. So if a lot of us talk about upgrading, right? So, man, my Windows machine is, I'm on Windows 10 and I need to get to 11. And well, the internet architecture and the protocol was built in the 70s. So if you think your Windows machine is old,
that's old.
The Windows architecture is a lot older, right? Or sorry, the internet architecture in terms, it's really its numbering system. So I joke to some degree, but yeah, so there's definitely some initiatives to adopt this new version of internet, and that is how I stay connected with a lot of the original scientists who built it or worked on it and supported it. There's a number of people that contributed to it, so it's definitely not an individual effort.
Yeah. What do you think, or what does he say about the internet now as it did 40 years ago? What's his thoughts?
Well, I would posit that he would say that we're not in a very good place right now in terms of security. So, in fact, we've done some webinars together, and he just as recent as 2020, I'm almost literally quoting what he said here, which is there's some issues, and a lot of that comes from the principle of when we were actually commercializing, or when scale was achieving, which really started the introduction of the World Wide Web. And I think it was 89, Tim Berners-Lee who did that. And then there was more adoption and uptake in the early 90s. Again, I might have those years wrong. Vint would do a much better job than me on getting those dates right. That is when it became more commercially viable. And of course, everybody supported that growth. But I don't think we ever thought it was going to be as big as it got. So security wasn't really top of mind, nor was the idea of, did we make the numbering system big enough? So I think that's what he would say. And so now we're in a situation where we have some serious problems when it comes to the kinds of bad activities that are happening online. So I guess to some degree you can't expect those things not to happen. I mean, human behavior, I guess, is a big part of that challenge. And I'll quote Vint, and what he would, I heard him say one time before, I guess there's a reason, why we have Shakespeare, right? So it's, all of the expression of all the, bad human behavior that's out there. I mean, it resonates with us because we're human. And so I don't think you're ever going to see a time when you're going to, at least in our lifetimes, or maybe even our great-great-grandchildren's lifetimes, where bad behavior is eliminated.
Yeah. I'm going to dig in our audience. I'm talking and nerding out on this because I am a nerd, because I built my first computer in '79 before the internet was even launched in '83. I was doing sports stats, and so I'm passionate about tech and stuff. But we brought George on, and because of cybersecurity, George, you said it a couple times already. That's a problem.
Well, it is, and I think, again, Shakespeare, right? You're always going to have bad behavior. And I think to some degree, because of the ability to access a system for let's call it a bad guy to access a system, it's very malleable. The internet is, something that it doesn't matter where they are in the world, they can come after you. So, I think one of the things that we can safely say now is that we've been fighting this cybersecurity ground war for 50 plus years, not just on the internet, but digital transformation of information. There was other protocols and things before the internet protocol. And so, people were trying to hack into systems, whether it be through phone systems and, taking advantage of public phones using dial tones, which is what Kevin Mitnick is known for in the Alt 2600 clubs and some of those hacking groups. But, it's 50 years and we're losing the battle, right? The cybersecurity battle. We've been, so I think like anything in life, you have to recognize at one point, how do you prepare for when these things happen? And so cybersecurity has evolved a new dimension that I would refer to as cyber risk, which is that idea that, hey, there's going to be, just like in the physical world, there's going to be crime. And so you can police all day you want, but ultimately you still have to have a plan for how you're going to start maybe setting some expectations. And again, when the internet was built, security wasn't in mind of the users and the businesses that were on it. It was very much a keep it open and keep it neutral concept, which I think we still support. But the issue of securing people's systems, that really wasn't part of the design. And so we need to do a better job of making, I should say, when I say the tools that are out there, they're not very easy for the average consumer to use, right? For the general public in general. We have, quite a few challenges there in terms of making it simple for the folks that really aren't that technical. And so that we're not doing a great job there. So that will continue to happen. But now if we're expecting a compromise or a hack to happen, especially in business, then you really have to prepare for when. And that is the new evolution of this new idea of what we call cyber risk management. Very similar to what happened with fire brigades. So really, internet hack is it's like a digital fire.
Yeah.
Right. So, so if you think about fire departments and how that worked, right? So you had fires and fire brigades, you'd pay them to put the fire out, right? There were no like public fire departments, it wasn't a public service at the time. Then insurance companies came along and started insuring, and ultimately, there were some issues with that. And then eventually, now we have fire departments. So perhaps that is the path moving forward. And even though the analogy isn't perfect, I mean, clearly in firefighting, we accept that when a fire happens, that that fire, if your neighbor's house catches on fire or a building catches on fire, you're going to call the fire department, and everyone in the neighborhood accepts that, hey, I have a responsibility to call them, and then they come out with hoses and they spray out the fire and they destroy the building.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the analogy isn't perfect, because I think if you did that in a digital fire, like a cyber attack, then destroying that business completely by ripping that system apart and then losing all the data is not a feasible outcome for the business. And so kind of straddling that issue of you can't, how we do it and how we handle cyber fires, we're still perfecting that, and it's not perfect. There's a lack of understanding of where information in some environments are, even in your own home. Like, where did you put that file? Is it, if you're using storage at home, because some people now have storage systems where they store all the files. I mean, how easy is it to find things, right?
Yeah.
And so those are part of the challenges as well.
Yeah. It's interesting our timing to do this show, because I just watched The Beekeeper, which is a movie about people getting hacked, seniors, and this guy's system. And it's interesting because movies come from reality. So I'm sure these producers and writers went, hey, they probably talked to you. They should talk to you. What is the accountability to the executives in business with this cybersecurity now in 2024?
Well, that was I think the inevitable outcome is our lawmakers noticed that we were losing this ground war. And we used to regularly throw the people who handle the blinking lights under the bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fire that IT guy, fire that security guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? When ultimately a lot of these challenges were originating from Shakespeare, bad behavior. So marketing teams doing things, perhaps hiring third parties to do marketing, and that third party gets hacked, and now all of a sudden the company has to, oh, we lost your data, and then somebody shakes a finger at the IT department. Why did you let them do that? Right. And so lawmakers said, nah, no more. We need to start holding executives accountable. So the CEO, the CFO, who doesn't budget the cybersecurity investment that the chief information security officer suggested, and then measuring that risk and making sure the C-suite understands that risk. I do believe that some of these, we'll call them cyber laws, and cyber regulations as well, that these are going to create what essentially is more risk-focused handling or risk treatment functions around the cybersecurity problem. And they're surprisingly not technical. Right? A lot of them are about how you handle contracts. And so you'll be involving attorneys possibly to rewrite your contracts to make sure that maybe the companies you hire are essentially protecting the data that you may be transferring to them. And same thing for you is your customers are going to be, you're not going to earn that sale.
Yeah.
It'll be a revenue blocker for a lot of revenue teams. And then of course there's the fear factor, but I don't think the fear factor is as powerful as not being able to create revenue.
Yeah.
So that is business, and I think that's a global situation. You're going to see that anywhere. It's like, hey, if this is going to stop my revenue, I'm going to do something about it. So a lot of these cyber laws are geared towards that accountability and supply chains and those sorts of things. But those executives that don't consider that and aren't building their plans on how to do that are the ones that are going to be really in trouble, because some of these laws are creating a degree of vulnerability for executives that could result in civil liability. There are some cases recently where not just the chief information security officer gets pursued personally for something that he did incorrectly in the business, but the CFO as well and the CEO. So the more of that you see, you're going to see more what essentially is attentiveness to what we call the cyber risk issue. And businesses, their goal will be to figure out, how do I differentiate myself to my customer and show them that I'm handling this cyber risk problem. I'm going to demonstrate that, and I'm going to basically document that and show my customers. And so you're going to monetize that risk, but you're also going to want to transfer a lot of it out. You're going to want to get it out of the organization, right? So, so perhaps for some businesses, it will be a situation where they don't want to put a server within their environment anymore. because they realize that perhaps they can't afford all the security technology now to protect it. So they will decide to put it in a cloud environment. And granted, there's still going to be issues with that cloud provider, but if you do your procurement and your supply chain management properly, then you're going to reduce that risk. There's no way to completely eliminate the risk, and I think that's what people struggle with. And I think a lot of veteran IT workers, I would say, people who've been in the business for a while, is we've been for years have been expected to stop the hacker, right?
Yeah.
And we can't sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the bad behavior of someone in the business is such that that there's really difficult for us to stop it. Then there's going to be problems that we can't fix. Traditionally, we could. So you could go to the boss and say, we're secure. No one will get in, right? You can't say that anymore.
Yeah. That's a big statement.
And that cultural mindset of, stop the hacker has to have an additional, or even a change from prepare for the hacker and when they succeed rather than stop them.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to do your best to prepare to stop them, but you can't completely eliminate the risk, and you can't completely outsource it either. So, yeah. Which is really the impetus of what OmniStruct does, is where we handle the cyber risk, that cyber risk function, and it's not inexpensive, and we just figured out a way to do it more affordably for businesses that can't afford the team of 10.
Yeah.
Of the business information security officers with a new role, and
right.
The people who understand the legal and the regulatory, you need people for that. So
with these laws and what you're saying, and the CEO being accountable in the C-suite, it sounds like that cybersecurity needs part of the toolbox. You got your marketing, you got your HR, you've got this, you've got that. I call them a toolbox to run a business. This is almost essential in their toolbox now.
It is, and I think a lot of people would argue that a lot of non-technical people would argue that, hey, that's a cost center, right? That's a cost of doing business. And so that's the only issue, is that your marketing department creates revenue. Your operations team creates revenue. Your HR department indirectly creates that revenue by finding the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's maybe more value there.
Yep.
Generally speaking, the blinking lights that run your business has historically always been a cost center, right? Oh, I need that now to keep up with competitors that went through digital transformation, as we say it. So cybersecurity may fall more in that bucket of, hey, this is a cost, but I think where you're going to see it become more of a revenue generation opportunity is within sales teams. So if you can't earn that contract, and you're in a commoditized situation where you're competing with another company, and you put in front of that customer, well, look at what we're doing from a cyber risk management perspective, right? Even if we have an issue, here's how you're going to be protected if you buy from us, and your competitor isn't doing that, you're going to earn the revenue, and they won't. And that's where a lot of these cyber laws are slowly cascading down what essentially are business decisions of, well, if I have to do it, if I have to do this cybersecurity thing because this law says so, then, and it says I have to make all of my vendors do it, well, you better believe I'm going to make them do it. Yeah. So all of a sudden, your vendor pool goes from, 10,000, commoditized, 10,000 vendors to pick from, embellishing a bit. You have a large pool of vendors.
Yeah.
Now you have a much smaller pool because you're looking for the ones that are pre-certified, who are prepared. And that is, at least in the business community, what's expected. What concerns me is that this does not address the consumer directly. So what does grandpa and grandma do when they have their email compromised on their iPad, right?
Yep.
And this is the area where things need to change. And we do have actually a national, kind of like a cyber fire department called CISA and CISA. And that organization, and even Dr. Surf said, hey, we have a fire department now, a cyber fire department that can help. But you have to also recognize that we also realize, and so does Dr. Surf, that that's one fire department that's more at a very high level. What about your regional needs? And so, and because every city has different kind of industry. And
Mhm.
so I'll use Los Angeles for an example. Cybersecurity to them is a lot different. It's asset protection for them. So they actually make 90 some odd versions of films when they make them. The one film has 90 versions because they have to make a analog version that is standard screen, an analog version that is widescreen, a digital version that is a standard screen, IMAX, and so they,
Yeah.
right. And then they have 13 or 14 different distribution markets. So cybersecurity to them is they're going to go to a frame in a movie and change a lampshade, like an inconspicuous thing in one of the frames in all the films, just to be a slightly different color. So if that film leaks in that market, they know exactly which market leaked it, and they can limit and understand, okay, who's the problem here and how do we address it?
Mm,
Right?
that's interesting.
That's industry focus, right? You're not
Yeah.
gonna you're not gonna see that with a company that is a farming community, right? So you're not going to see that with organizations that are even in tech that are selling things that are hardware and computer assets. So that's where things become a little bit more customized. And so maybe we need regional cyber fire departments as well that are community focused, because the community in the industry is necessary. And I actually am on a board, active board member for an organization called Secure the Village, and that's
Hmm.
based in Los Angeles, and that's actually funded by CIS, the Center for Internet Security. And we're actually trying to do something like that in Los Angeles to reduce cybercrime in Los Angeles. And that they're one of the bigger violators, right? So there's
Yeah.
a lot of money lost in LA. There's other cities as well, but those kinds of things you're going to see more and more of that. And maybe even perhaps you will see publicly funded regional cyber fire departments. And
Yeah.
that is what I'm seeing with a lot of law enforcement. I speak at digital forensics where there's law enforcement there. And a lot of them are very interested in the concept of moving over to more of a cyber risk, cyber fire department function. A lot of folks in LE, or law enforcement specifically.
Yeah. It's a great idea. And that leads to running out of time here. The most important, the elephant in the room, I say, is AI. What's the cybersecurity risk for executives or for anybody with AI? Because it's only growing, it's not going away.
Like anything online, there's a risk, but this is an easy one for me. AI, co-pilot, not pilot.
Love it. Because that just tells you what it is. And garbage in, garbage out is when they started the internet. I still remember that phrase. It's coding, I think, and it still makes an impact. I want to thank you for being on. This has been a great show, and I brought you on because this is only growing, this cybersecurity, and business don't know about it, and you're doing great things with it, and I appreciate you doing that.
My pleasure. And keep your eyes peeled on AI, right? Things may change there.
Yep.
There's also artificial intelligence ethics things happening. Actually, Dr. Surf is involved in that as well. So lots out there. So thank you for having me. And of course, I appreciate all the listeners that have tuned in today.
Yeah, and how can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You will need my email address to connect with me. I am in security after all. And my handle starts with GUSI and at my domain, which is mycompanyname.com.
Homestruck.com.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, George. Thank you for listening. Hey, leave some comments on the YouTube channel. What you think about this, what you think about cybersecurity. Love to hear. I'll pass them on to George. And don't forget about my TV show every Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern. Together we serve. Reach out to me and I'll put some stuff in the notes, and I'll put all George's contact info in the notes as well. And we'll see you all the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.